And welcome back to Berlin, Germany for our match of the day, Fnatic vs Schalke. Before we get to the action, I want to take a closer look at the race for playoffs as we've already had some key results throughout the day. Now, Vitality are looking very solid in second place in the standings as they secured that win against Misfits, and that was without their star mid laner, Jizuke. If you're a Vitality fan and you look at these standings, then you want Fnatic to win the next game. That will put Vitality 2 wins ahead of Schalke in the battle for second place. If you look at the standings, but you go a little bit lower down, Misfits and SK losing today is great news for Fnatic fans. It closes the gap in the race for top 6 because only 6 teams can make it into the postseason. Now, in general, when looking at the standings, if we choose to ignore the fight for seeding, there are 2 very exciting stories that are going to happen based on the result of our next game. If Fnatic win, it means they are going to be on the same win-loss as the likes of SK and Misfits. If Schalke win, they are 1 win behind Vitality in the race for second place. Vitality and Schalke's head-to-head record is 1-1, so for Schalke to force a tiebreaker deciding game for that second seed and a guaranteed spot in Rotterdam, they need to win 1 more game than Vitality in the coming weeks. Let's see if they can do it. Fnatic are more alive than ever before in the race for playoffs, and they're looking for another big win tonight with their sights set on Rotterdam. Fnatic are dead in the water as G2 Esports have repeatedly killed them. The fastest win of spring, G2 destroy Fnatic.
My father always says, you either win or you learn.
A little bit of pressure. Whoa, Memento! That is not the time to push that button.
What the hell just happened? Memento!
I think by every loss we have learned something really crucial.
Probably has been one of the toughest Fnatic splits ever. It has been horrible as a player as well, being in this situation and being on the brink of not even making playoffs.
It just left me kind of scared, I guess, going into the split because Fnatic is supposed to be the kings of Europe, right? We're not supposed to be some lower tier team or 8th place team.
I do feel confident in my team. Right now it feels terribly, so I don't want to stay in this emotion. I obviously want to come back and show that we are still a strong team.
There's the Odoamne ultimate. It's clean from the cannon, and it is an absolute bloodbath. The fountain will barely keep Nemesis safe.
Fnatic looked really disjointed and they weren't really on the same page in the beginning of the split. I don't really think Rekkles is like ahead of me in any aspect right now. I for sure don't think Rekkles will be a problem versus me.
Jack will stepping forward, Mowgli is up, Rekkles steps forward though! This is his moment! And he shines right when the team needs him most.
I've seen everything. I've been through everything. I know what to do in the dire moments, and I don't think he has the same sort of knowledge that I do.
I don't really want to beat him when he was on the ground. I want to beat him when he's at his peak.
Oh, that's so well played! The sync up on the abilities, Rekkles is gonna die!
At this point, honestly, all the wins matter. Since we're on the upswing and they're a little bit on the downswing, maybe this is the perfect time for us to take them down. I know that when it matters the most, people can trust me to get the job done.
Triple for Rekkles, the quadra, the pentakill for Rekkles.
At this point, any game means everything to us. We are not allowed to drop games at this point.
If we want to win this whole thing, we just need to take it as serious as possible, like if it's the last game we're ever playing together.
Schalke versus Fnatic, 2 giants going head-to-head in a game that has huge implications in the standings. I'd like to welcome Amazing and Froskurinn. He'll be helping us break down picks and bans for the match of the day. And Amazing, I'm going to turn to you first. You know, how important is this game for Schalke, a team that has been a little bit shaky in recent weeks?
I think it's extremely important. Like, the amount of momentum that is basically going downhill right now for them has to be reversed in some kind of way, because you started down your teammates, you started down the team, whatever it is, even if you're still a really good team, because you're losing on stage. So if they now win against Fnatic, obviously they see as rivals to a certain extent too, it will boost their confidence and will probably boost upset again, you know, in some kind of way and help the team grow.
Well, we'll have to find out. Froskurinn, of course, last weekend. Some big question marks for Memento. There's some clear ways that he can improve his game. What do you think of this matchup, Memento versus Broxah today, and you know how it's going to impact the game?
I mean, I think it's really easy to pick on Memento because he had the very clear fumble with the stopwatch. But frankly, across the board, there's been individual missteps from virtually every member on Schalke, which is like really hard. I think it's super easy as a coach to go backstage with that team and say like, okay, well, if you didn't mess up, you know, that stopwatch there, that play could have gone completely different, versus like massive holes into their macro game. The problem is that it's kind of like repeated performances where Schalke aren't even getting to flex their macro game because they make so many mistakes in the lane phase.
Now, I would say in Memento's defense, I think one of the biggest strengths that he brings to the team is he's very good at tracking the enemy jungler during the early game. And for a player like Broxah on the other side, who's been a little more unique in his pathing, a little more creative in his ability to find early game plays, I think that that's something that Memento can try to bring into this game to counter Broxah's play.
I don't know about Broxah's creative pathing. Like from what I've seen, at least out of him, is that he's just really good at getting the farm that he needs in order to scale into mid to late game scenarios. Whereas Memento is someone rather that now creates opportunities for his team in certain scenarios that they don't expect. The enemies may not expect it. So I actually think it's kind of the reverse. Where Memento is going to be the one, or has to be the one, is aggressive early on, create like some kind of pathing that no one has seen before, especially with Dylan Sev, because I obviously know like how they work together. That like this is something they actively always try. So I would rather see Broxah in a more defensive position than the other way around.
What do you make about the draft now? Of all 5 games, only 2 teams picked blue side today. Ender, maybe some theories for me, and what do you think Fnatic can do on the draft today, and why they prefer blue against Schalke?
Yeah, so first of all, I actually think the red side is just stronger, and that's why we are a little bit surprised to see these teams going for blue side. I think what Fnatic should be aiming for in this type of a draft is going specifically with targeted bans. On blue side, what you should be doing, I think especially against a player like Abbedagge, is taking away some of those safe mid lane options, and then maybe even first picking a mid laner for Nemesis as well. You can sort of ban away a Zoe, Alessandra, and pick yourself up a LeBlanc, or, you know, in other orders. I think there's definitely a lot of options here for Fnatic to try to secure themselves a really good first pick.
I mean, that was really the theories that we were working with. Amazing, you brought it up. Like, if Jace and Lucian are up, go ahead and grab those as the priority pick. Fnatic have shown that they'll grab Lucian anytime it's available. Also, the Galio support, I think, needs to be brought up into the conversation because they'll also really heavily prioritize that champion, whereas in the LEC, we don't really see that priority. Globally, though, Galio is like a big deal. But I agree. I think it has to be something in the ban strategy. I don't know if it's always going to be Abbedagge. That makes sense to me because he's kind of like, you attack the rookie, you attack the guy who you would think that you can shake the most and give your rookie and Nemesis kind of the better matchup. But I think you can go multiple ways. Maybe you attack the bot lane, you go after Upset and IgNar. Maybe you, for once, give Bwipo a bone and attack the top lane. Probably not going to happen.
Probably not. I don't expect that, especially for Fnatic after they found success last weekend playing a lot more through bottom lane. Just a quick update, we are getting the players into the lobby and we will be getting to picks and bans shortly. I am in the lobby and I can see all 5 Fnatic members in their positions. Upset is the only member of Schalke in the lobby right now and in-game, and he just typed, ready, 1v9. Now, a little bit of fun, of course, a little bit of banter after Upset featured in the video, and Schalke, amazing, of course. We talked about what Fnatic could do looking at Schalke. What are some of the options that you like when you're red side playing against Fnatic?
Honestly, Fnatic, because they play so heavily to bot lane and they basically rediscovered this kind of style, they basically abandoned their soul lanes. And Nemesis obviously has shown like almost like no synergy with Broxah, so you kind of want to attack the mid lane on the other side too. And honestly, if you expect Bwipo to sack the lane in order to support his own bot lane, you can also attack the top lane and just like try to maybe get a flex pick in, maybe play some of the champions that have been known for example, the Rise on the top lane that basically opens up the 1-3 on the mid game and basically makes the game really structured for Schalke when they can actually shine.
I love Rise, and I also hope that Jace gets through this, especially for Schalke, because I think Odo is one of those top laners that isn't afraid to take the Jace matchup and try to actually carry through it. And Bwipo, again, like you're saying, amazing, will actually just sack it. He'll go down 20 CS and play for the team, but I think Odo can really make a dent here if Abbedagge isn't willing to step up and carry.
Just before you jump in there, and Jace has been played by Bwipo 1 game, and he won that 6-2 and 9. It's been played twice by Odoamne, 3-0 and 6 across both of his games. So both top laners undefeated on the Jace. And I mean, your take, top lane, we haven't seen as many conquerors as I would have liked, but it has thrown in a little bit of mix here today.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen a ton. I think, again, you're going to see some picks sort of emerge as counter picks or, you know, picks that you can play around strongly in a side lane. If I look at Bwipo, I think he's the guy to sort of experiment more, but overall, within his role inside of the team, I don't think the better option for him is going to be go for something that's like hard 1v9, split push, that sort of style. What it could be is, you know, maybe another blind pickable, safer option for him.
All right, give me an example of a blind pickable safe option. You know, Froskurinn, amazing.
I honestly feel the cannon is kind of safe. Then obviously, like on the top lane, honestly, if you know the enemy champion pool, you can kind of go for, I suppose, even the likes of Urgot still, Jace is still there. But it's like, it's still...
Don't bring up Urgot.
Honestly, top laners are a role that is just really hard to blind pick because top laners are the most complaining role in League of Legends. Whatever it is, like they never want to blind pick, and every matchup is bad, and there's always 50 counter picks.
Do you got some like personal issues you need to like?
I mean,
weren't we talking about this? Like jungler has to have like a background of like psychology and babysitting.
Yes.
They need to know first aid, CPR.
Well, I'm gonna back up amazing here. I'm a jungler too, and I feel the pain.
Well, listen, we are into draft, and of course, one of the questions or one of the champions we didn't get to just yet was the likes of that Sylas. Amazing, it's something you said you expected to see first pick or first rotation every draft. Amazing, take me through this. Thresh and Galio already banned away.
Yeah, just basically want to decrease the amount of playmaking that comes from the WoW supports. Hylissang, Galio, IgNar, Thresh has been superb. And the Rekkles side kind of makes sense on the blue side to ban it because it's not really a pick that you want to first pick, but on the first 1-2, it seems like a strong pick because you already like kind of have an idea of what the enemy is going for with first pick.
Yeah, and as far as sort of champions that we were tracking during that pre-game talk, I'm still looking at the likes of the Jace. We've seen the Galio and Lucian banned away, which I think is very intelligent to do from the side of Schalke. Now I'm sort of seeing them follow that up by a Jace ban to make sure that Fnatic don't lock that in right away.
And Frosco, something we're not seeing is targeting Abbedagge. So blue side pick Ivern banned away.
Oh god. Well, I mean, my academy team has been playing it on in games already, so probably they think they may have transferred to the main team. So it kind of makes sense to ban it if you actually do research.
Yeah. See, I'm looking at it, I'm like, this seems pretty troll to me. We have seen it as like a Karthus counter pick, so maybe that's supposed to be an option here for Broxah in the jungle. That's the Jace you're looking at to be taken away, and it opens up first picks. I think the Sylas fits in really well because, of course, it is still flexible. While we have seen it perform pretty well in the mid lane today, you do have the options to throw it around.
But the thing is the one strategy that we really were talking about was trying to deny a comfort pick from Abbedagge. He seems to be kind of the most unsettled or inconsistent member of Schalke, and I think it's super easy to say, okay, make sure at least in these first 3 picks, if not in second rotation, that we get Abbedagge something that he is super comfortable with, and he did have a phenomenal LeBlanc game the last time we saw it.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure if the bans overall made sense for Fnatic. As you said, attacking Abbedagge as SK did last week would have probably done them better, and from what I've seen, Abbedagge's LeBlanc has always been solid, he's always been carrying, so not quite sure with this one, but it makes sense to set up the Karthus with the Iron ban.
Ooh, this is really interesting here. The Karthus is locked in, as well as the Jarvan. I mean, right off the bat, I imagine it would be something like the Jarvan in the top lane, Sylas in mid, but as we said, there is the ability to sort of move these picks around, and now, if you look towards Schalke's side, I think you want to be locking in something like the Alistar alongside of this Kai'Sa. It's a very strong 2v2 pairing, and they can make sure that they get that duo.
And it's also a champion, I mean, amazing. You were talking about how IgNar's roam potential is so strong on a champion like Alistar. He's able to really time up with Memento and offer a lot of that hard CC. But now we should see more pinching of the jungle pools. So goodbye, Olaf.
Goodbye, Olaf. Yeah, I mean, basically when you have Karthus on your team, you kind of want to minimize the amount of early play potential the enemy has. So any gank potential jungler, something like the Olaf with the LeBlanc, or something like the Lee Sin maybe even would make sense, or Elise for junglers, for example, would make sense. So I do expect more jungle pinches, yeah.
Yeah, now what we're seeing from Schalke is the arms race in the bottom lane as Jax gets banned here.
What was that noise, Frost? What was your reaction to Jax ban?
Okay, so it could be because there is triple flex from Fnatic, so, you know, the Karthus doesn't necessarily have to go into the jungle position, and so maybe that's why they're choosing to sculpt out better matchups to figure out who is going to slot into these lanes by not banning away the likes of Olaf and Elise.
Yeah, so trying to think back when Jarvan has been played top lane pretty consistently, I think Jax was actually a a favorable matchup into it. It's sort of outscaled in the side lane, so this makes me think even more that my earlier thought of Jarvan top is going to be correct, and that's how Fnatic want to set it up, but they want to take away Conqueror users that will outscale Jarvan in the 1v1.
Sylas also has a great matchup into LeBlanc in the mid lane.
Yeah, it's definitely decent. You still allow LeBlanc to have the playmaking, but honestly, LeBlanc should never be able to kill the Sylas if the Sylas plays right, so he gets free scaling and then can be a menace later in the team fights. I like the AD carry events. Honestly, it makes sense to kind of deter Rekkles from his main champions, especially because he has actually been successful last week on the Lucian. And Tristan has always been a comfort pick for him, just as the Rin has been.
So if you're Rekkles, amazing, do you go for Sivir here or do you go for Jinx? Because it feels like Rekkles, when he goes Jinx, he wants to 1v9.
Okay,
and Sivir has a bad matchup in Hali.
As a jungler, I obviously have a degree in psychology. I would say that you don't pick the Sivir here because the enemy has the Alistar, so I would not want to see it, and I think that may actually have been what Schalke has been going for with bans, where they kind of want to force him into Sivir, into Alistar. That seems like a better. Now we see the Xayah and Rakan coming in.
That's really interesting here from Fnatic. I mean, I think we already saw some engage potential with this Jarvan in the composition, but now, and sort of an old school duo, I would say, with the Xayah Rakan here, it does give you some pretty decent laning 2v2 up against the Kai'Sa Alistar. It's really throwing me back to early 2018 here with this bottom lane, but then it gives Rekkles a lot of protection against Alistar, Alistar, Kai'Sa, LeBlanc, all trying to dive him in these later game skirmishes.
It's a Vladimir.
We thought that Vladimir might crop back up because of his ability to hyperscale into his side lane, because at some point there's just nothing that you can do to deal with him, but Jarvan actually can have a decent matchup to Vladimir because you can trap him.
Well, let's step just a little bit back. We don't have the most amount of time. We have to go to the casters. Froskurinn, what do you make of the team compositions that you see on your screen?
I mean, I think we got the... I hope that swaps from Odo to Vlad. There we go. I think that they did manage to get the superior jungle matchup, and that's really what I wanted. I wanted IgNar to be unlocked, I want Memento to have dueling potential there, and I want a strong side of the map, and you got comfort picks for Abbedagge.
Yeah, I mean, the jungle matchup is definitely going to be important, but on the other side, I think Fnatic, if they can stall out late enough, have the scaling advantage. They have the superior 5v5, and a lot of stock is going to be put in Rekkles to carry later.
Yeah, I think Fnatic basically took one out of G2's playbook, try to basically have hyper-aggressive lanes, especially on the top side of the map, and basically utilize the Karthus to facilitate a bit more damage in order to kill them level 6.
Well, listen, we're just about to head to the casters. Before we do, down the line, now you've seen the draft. Who wins the game? Just give me the team name only. Froskurinn.
I'm going to go with Fnatic.
Fnatic.
Schalke.
Fnatic, Schalke. Let's see who comes out on top as we head to the casters to take us into game.
Thank you very much, Quickshot. Unsurprising that Amazing went with Schalke, I'll be honest, but a lot of Fnatic hope coming from our analyst desk there, Vedius. Would you be on the Fnatic train as well, looking at these drafts?
Well, as an unbiased caster, I believe that no team is favored until they hit the rift.
Okay, they've loaded in now, so which team is favored?
They've hit the rift, we can talk about which team is favored. So, I agree with the analysts. We don't need to say anything. No, I'm kidding. So what I'm looking at from this draft from the side of Schalke is I think they need to play around mid lane. I think they have to focus on trying to put Nemesis behind with the LeBlanc. One of the things that we heard the analyst desk talking a little bit about was the scaling on the side of Fnatic. I definitely think it is stronger. I think Sylas, assuming that he goes very much more towards the tank build, will be way stronger later on into the game than the LeBlanc will. Just in terms of actual 5v5, obviously, because LeBlanc can be challenging to play in 5v5 as well. But the other thing is, before I get into that, sorry, I think that they just have a lot of crowd control, a lot of area of effect damage, and Fnatic showcased last week how strong their team fighting is. So we see a bit of a
stun already onto Odo here. Broxah's on the chase. Memento comes across, but Nemesis looking for that second lead.
Where's he going to go?
Yeah, you haven't really got many places to go. We'll try and flash away. There's the spear. Second lead comes out, and Odo uses his flash. Fnatic level 1 coming up trumps once again.
So I don't know if Broxah's going to really try and gank anywhere in the early. Remember that the base nerf damages that happened to his Q did affect his early clear speed. But to kind of go back to the comps, sorry, before I go off too much tangent, Schalke want to play around mid. I think Fnatic want to play around bot, especially once they hit level 6. But they do have the options of playing around top as well. Vlad is very weak in the early levels, and you can look to bully him. So
okay, that makes sense. You've burnt his flash already as well, so you have the opportunity to go for a repeat gank there.
Now, I kind of want to talk about some of the matchups. What I've noticed is that Fnatic are running double Conqueror on both mid and top. I don't fully agree with the Conqueror in the top lane. Something that we've actually seen against many ranged matchups is to actually run Airy because of how aggressive you can be. But I would argue that because Bwipo is strong at early levels versus the Vladimir who's very weak, his goal is to actually just get into your face, generate those stacks very quickly, and then just be a bully in lane rather than just relying on those airy procs to just slowly chip away. The Sylas Conqueror is quite unique to me, and I would assume that he builds it up because of how quickly you can channel both your passive autos along with your abilities. So remember that you can now generate stacks off of both abilities and auto attacks, which means you have potentially 2 on your Q, you then have your E, you then have all the autos, you have your W, so there's actually quite a lot of ways to stack that Q up.
I'll keep our eyes on how many stacks Nemesis is getting in some of these fights. He is on a melee champion, so it will stick around for the entire duration, not the shortened stacking duration that we see on ranged champs. I want to talk a little bit about the fact that Fnatic can play around top and that Bwipo is on this Jarvan, perhaps a more aggressive pick than we've seen him on recently, because in the last few weeks, Bwipo has been very much the sacrificial lamb for Fnatic. He said it himself, he's like, it feels bad because I go into every game knowing my team is not going to play around me and my intention is just not to die. And this composition feels a little bit more like we could see Fnatic going through this top lane.
No.
No?
While we talked about it is an option, I don't think they need to. When you have a Xayah Rakan, to me that spells the lane that you should try to play through.
Oh, Bwipo just wins 1v1 though.
And you don't need to play through a lane that's just stomping anyway. We talked about it. The Conqueror is much more about being that lane bully. Level 3 high base stats. And Bwipo gets a solo kill onto Odoamne. And unfortunately for him, that means that Broxah is going to be like, well, now I don't even need to gang top lane. But excellent stuff from Bwipo in the early game. That's exactly what Fnatic fans want to see.
Really strong stuff. Broxah trying to get in for the invade here. Stealing away Memento's blue. It's resetting just a little bit. Broxah does have the smite, so there's Memento. Memento will be the one to secure it. Slightly early, as you say, from Broxah.
Now, fans at home may be like, hang on. Karthus isn't supposed to invade. How does that work? Well, the reason it works is because of lane priority. One of my favorite things ever. You'll notice that Nemesis has push in mid, and you'll also see that the bot lane for Fnatic is pushing in heavily, which means that Broxah, even though weaker in a 1v1 against the Lee Sin, has the numbers advantage because Hylissang and Nemesis can move into support should they need it. So that's why he was able to invade. He couldn't quite steal away the blue buff, but still utilizing the pressure that he has elsewhere on the map.
You can see Odo struggling to trade into Bwipo on the top side. We'll have the flash up sooner than the Fnatic top laner, so has an opportunity when that comes back up. But knowing the Mementos on the bottom side of the map, Bwipo very willing just to step forward, especially with his extra aggressive items at the moment with double longsword.
So you can actually see in this mid lane matchup so far, the LeBlanc isn't winning. Bit of a trade down towards the bot side of the map.
That's fine. So I thought you were going to continue on your LeBlanc.
Yes, I was. So I thought you wanted to quickly talk about that, but you seem good. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about this matchup. The thing about Sylas that I think a lot of people don't realize is his wave clear is ridiculous. Sylas is maxing Q. This is something that a lot more Sylases have been doing recently, and it just melts through waves. And the thing that LeBlanc often struggles with at early levels is high wave clear champions. Because she wants to be in a position where the wave is actually neutral, and she can zone you away from the farm. But the thing about Sylas is he has so much sustain that every time LeBlanc tries to W in to try and harass, you can then immediately W back, you can get a lot of your health back, you can deal a decent amount of damage, and then you can clear the wave, because her W is gone, and you're on a much lower cooldown. So, while there is the opportunity, because the Lee Sin LeBlanc duo is very strong, it gives you a strong 2 versus 2, especially against the Karthus Sylas. In terms of the actual straight up 1v1, I feel that it is pretty heavily Sylas favored.
Broxah coming up towards the top side of the map to give a little bit of vision for Bwipo. We'll just put a pink ward down there and they'll clear out any wards coming out. IgNar's doing a good job actually here of holding the wave for Upset so he can come back. He's gone back, picked up that BF sword. The wave will push into tower as Upset arrives. Do you want to talk a little bit about this bot lane matchup? We haven't focused on it, ideally, but Nemesis is running the fleet footwork here on the Xayah.
Rekkles.
Sorry, Rekkles, not Nemesis.
And the reason why I'm glad you brought this one up, Medic. Oh, hang on, jungler.
Both of them.
Anything I can do the play-by-play thing?
Well, we don't need to do it quite yet because there's nothing.
Don't you do the whole posture?
Oh, we can do posture.
Hanging around, looking for an opportunity.
build the intensity as Nemesis jumps in, building up those Conqueror stacks, but neither of the junglers actually going to do too much. Broxah still not level 6.
Great, really like that, Medic. Good job. Thanks. So you want to talk about fleet footwork on Rekkles. The reason why I like that you bring this up is because typically we see lethal tempo. The cool thing about lethal tempo is it's very easy to proc with things like Q, and then you can generate a bunch of feathers, and you have all this attack speed, and you do a lot of damage basically. However, Rekkles has the preference to go fleet footwork, and the reason for that is because Hylissang likes to roam. So Rekkles is much more of the opinion that he wants that sustain, he wants that extra bit of mobility and kite power, whereas his support loves to move around the map. So if he's in this 1v2 situation, he'll be a little safer.
Keep our eyes on Hylissang as he does move up towards the river, just get some vision control. And something I want to bring attention to over the last few weeks when Fnatic have been on this upswing, this upsurge of performance, is their early game. See, in weeks 5 and 6, they have 100% of first towers. Their deaths at 15 are much lower than before, and they get these big gold advantages at the 15-minute mark as well. And you have to think that now that Broxah's hit level 6, we'll start to see Fnatic trying to accelerate this gold lead just a little bit. Yeah, and their early game has definitely improved. I personally attribute that a lot more to Hylissang being on playmakers and Broxah having an early game plan that he commits to and actually executes upon. Now, he is on a Karthus, but still his early game has gone extremely well. He's been able to keep track of what Memento has been up to. And again, look at all this vision being set up around Nemesis and towards the bottom half of the map. He's basically saying, you know what? I can keep you safe. You play as aggressively as you want. We'll be nice and happy as I say that. Nemesis gets chained up, the Ignite comes out as well. IgNar there in time. Memento with the first kill of the game for Schalke. Nemesis just overstepped a little bit against Abbedagge.
I'm getting a lot of caster curses today. I do apologize about that, Nemesis, but you should have spotted that IgNar was roaming up through the river because you had all that vision available to you that Broxah did set up. He doesn't have his teleport available. He did have the flash, but he chose not to use it, and it means that Abbedagge ends up helping his team find that first kill now with a level advantage. And we can take a quick look back at it. IgNar is literally standing on a ward. He clears it out. Nemesis gets hit by the second chain. Just flash into your turret, mate. IgNar's not level 6. That was greedy. You deserve to die. Anyway. As in he deserved to die in that situation. There wasn't no... Do not take it in the wrong context there.
No, in that situation...
He made a mistake,
the way that Nemesis
and he deserved to die for that mistake.
Yes, I totally agree. That's what happened.
Got out of that situation.
And it means the goal difference between these two teams is now evened up again. I was expecting with Broxah getting to this Requiem, having that level 6, having the sort of the game-changing ultimate on the Karthus, we'd see a little bit more out of Fnatic, but they seem willing just to play with the status quo, accept how things are going at the moment. A bit of a CS lead actually building up for upset in the bottom lane. Oh, yeah. About 20 farm or so, and a lot of this actually came back to when IgNar froze the wave and we pulled attention to it. But Rekkles has just not quite been able to catch back up to what was a relatively good freeze from the Schalke bottom lane.
Yeah, it's a really good spot there, Medic. And it's also due to the fact that we have seen Hylissang moving up through the river a decent amount as well. But IgNar now the one setting up these roams. And if we think back to early split Schalke, it was IgNar and Memento working together that actually built up a lot of these early game leads for Schalke. And now that IgNar has already completed the mobility boots and is looking for another play on the mid lane, it kind of a throwback to where Schalke found so much success, and hopefully they can look to replicate it.
So as a support man, I'm always interested in looking at itemization choices, especially first rotation on Rakan, because you have a few different options. It actually looks like Hylissang is going towards the Zeeks here, but it's gone double cloth armor to start it off. So getting himself as armor heavy as possible to deal with the Lee Sin ganks. And Broxah actually caught out here as IgNar gets him behind the tower. Abbedagge flashes across the wall. Broxah going to be shielded up. IgNar pops the ultimate, but Broxah's still very healthy. IgNar caught underneath the tower here, charmed up as well. And Fnatic react properly to a fight. Looks like it was a kill in the top lane as well, as Bwipo just takes down Odo in the 1v1.
So while Schalke slowly find their way back into the game, they immediately throw it away by being way too over-eager. IgNar, he didn't need to follow up on that chain underneath the tower. They'd already gotten the flash out from Broxah. They should have been happy. It would have forced the bottom lane of Fnatic to play more defensively. But to make matters even worse for Schalke, Bwipo ends up finding his second solo kill of the game. And now we're going to take a quick look back at how that happened. Bwipo, he doesn't find the knock-up, but here you can see he's building up those Conqueror stacks. He's doing a decent amount of damage. He locks him in just before he goes into the pool, and then he gets a second knock-up. Beautiful stuff, and now more fighting.
Teleport coming in here, though. It looks like Bwipo's going to be the one to join the fight. It's Nemesis first. There's the Requiem as well, as Memento goes down to about half HP. Bwipo is actually teleporting back to base.
Engaging. Here comes Abbedagge.
Abbedagge behind them. Schalke trying to find an answer to this early Fnatic pressure. There's a teleport in from Bwipo. Abbedagge, the one caught out. He jumps back. Teleport. Bwipo looking for the knockup. Memento needs to dodge away, but he can't dodge from that. Bwipo on a killing spree. 3-0 now on this job.
Bwipo having a monster of a game, kind of putting Fnatic on his back right now, proving that he doesn't need resources to be a high-impact player. And now he's looking for more.
Jumps in. Abbedagge's going to jump away. IgNar has the stun, just about to come back up. But Bwipo will just chase him away. And IgNar has to burn the flash as well. Very reminiscent to the Origin game here when Fnatic just isolated that bottom lane, were able to get leads. Here, they're using the pressure that Bwipo got top to now pressure down towards this bottom side.
Beautiful stuff from Bwipo, utilizing his TP at just the right moment. Remember that he doesn't TP immediately. Nemesis is the one that TPs first. Then, once Fnatic realizes, okay, we're getting re-engaged on by Schalke, that's when Bwipo arrives and is able to turn around the situation, getting a kill, helping the team secure a couple of tower plates and more gold for his bot lane, and overall helping Fnatic get themselves a 3,000 gold lead.
Let's have another look at this fight, because Schalke, you can feel the intensity. You can feel they're trying to force things here because they know they're starting to fall behind.
Ooh, really like the kick there from Memento. He reads Hylissang trying to interrupt him, but then here comes the teleport in from Nemesis. You think that with the ultimate that's going to be enough, but the heal from Upset is enough to get Memento out of the situation. And then again, IgNar going for the re-engage initially looks dangerous, but he knows that Abbedagge is coming in from behind. The problem is the cooldowns, and they've got to respect the potential teleport. So Abbedagge ducks out, but then Bwipo arrives, and unfortunately Memento, he overstays, he ends up dropping, and Bwipo picks himself up another kill.
And chases Abbedagge out afterwards, and burn a couple of flashes. Broxah now reaping the benefits of his incredibly strong top lane, will take this Rift Herald. I want to just have a quick look at exactly how far ahead Bwipo is after this fight happens, because IgNar coming in. Nemesis steals away the ultimate. Rift Herald down to about 3,000 HP. Schalke still looking to make plays if they can. Rift Herald solo. Memento looking for the steal. Don't quite see if he gets that, but Hylissang jumps up towards the other side. Upset jumps up to the back line though. Already Nemesis down. Memento shortly to follow. You have to feel, but already Fnatic are just surrounded by 4 members of Schalke here. Not in a good spot at all. Broxah has to run away. Bwipo will fall to Upset. That's the shutdown for him. And that is a very good collapse from Schalke.
Schalke end up finding a bunch of kills, ends up being a 1-for-2, but while all that is happening, Rekkles has been sitting bot lane and securing a tower. He ends up getting a number of plays. I don't know if he managed to get it. What? Okay, Hylissang really wanted that eye.
Yeah,
ends up flashing for it.
He gets it though.
But I mean, that means that his flash engage is gone. I don't know if you really need to flash that. Anyway, he did it, he secures it, and Rekkles ends up picking up that bot tower. Now, I'm not entirely sure if he got all the plates, but overall he's going to get a lot of gold for taking that solo. So what we'll see here is that Nemesis is the one that gets engaged on initially. He's just trying to zone Schalke away along with Hylissang. Memento then splits up from his team, but Hylissang goes all in without the support from Bwipo. I think that he was just a little too quick to engage without proper follow-up from the rest of his team. And this is one of those situations where normally the EQ combo would work, but because he throws it onto terrain, the flag gets pushed just out of range, which means that he can't quite drag to it. And we get to see the flash. I guess he was worried that it was just about to disappear, so... Oh, we're gonna get a slow-mo.
There we go. Oh, he gets it.
I really don't think he needed a flash.
But you, like, yeah. I think the thing is, yes, you burn your flash, you'll be back up in 5 minutes, but you do have the engage potential out of Bwipo anyway, and Nemesis
I actually had it pinged in my ear that it was less than 2 seconds.
Oh, so okay, so yeah, give credit to Hylissang.
He knows better than I do. There you go.
Good stuff all around. Broxah gonna catch our Memento just a little bit here. 3,000 gold lead for Fnatic, 15 minutes in. Once again, the early game coming out well. We see Rekkles with the Essence Reaver now complete on that Xayah. Still no first item on Upset, but we've seen what Kai'Sa can do when you start getting, you know, a couple of items under your belt. So Schalke definitely not out of it. And Fnatic will be trying to utilize the pressure they have in a very strong top laner to continue to accelerate this game away.
So we've seen a number of Sylas builds, but typically when he is played in mid, he goes much more towards the tanky route. When he has a Jarvan that's this strong, I think it's fine, but you also have a Karthus as well, so you're more than enough damage, meaning that you can afford to be that more tanky disruptor champion in these team fights. Speaking of, we now have Fnatic grouped up as 5 in the mid. Bot has been pushed in, and Upset is catching the wave top, which means that there is no one to answer this siege from Fnatic, and they may be able to secure 2 turrets.
Now they'll definitely get the first. Probably would have liked to get a little bit more damage down, because the Rift Herald would have not taken any damage itself. The Requiem used here just to force them away, looking for that second tower, as you say. Odoamne has the flank potential. Upset there as well, on his way to join the fight. But Schalke, oh, Abbedagge is going to go all the way in, just ruin it straight away. What were you doing? You can't do that! Memento caught out here as well. We'll just get chased away from by Fnatic, but that was weak from Abbedagge.
That was a huge mistake. The problem was that he just tries to zone them away when they're already backing off. There's no need to try and commit to that play when the risk is so great. And he ends up getting immediately punished, and it's from the feathers from Rekkles as well, which is the worst part about it. So, as you identified, the ultimate came out to zone them away from the tower, they secure it. And Abbedagge goes in onto Rekkles, trying to chunk him out, but then he gets rooted up. The charm and knockup comes in from Hylissang as well. And they almost get the kill onto Memento, but he still has the W, the safeguard, to get out of that tricky situation.
And this has been a concern with Abbedagge. Over the last 3 games, the second half of the split, he's been dying a lot more in the early game, is last in all of these death percentages. So he has the highest death share of any mid laner, the highest deaths per game of any mid laner, and the highest deaths at 15 minutes of any mid laner as well. Here, he had an okay first 15 minutes, but we can see sometimes just taking that step too far.
Yeah, and ultimately, he just dies too much.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's because he makes a mistake. Sometimes it has been because teams have put pressure on him. But it feels like that he's a weak point that teams have looked to punish. And again, they're looking to punish him right now.
All right, Hylissang doesn't have ult here, so this isn't the easiest engage in the world. Abbedagge will just jump away.
It helps that Abbedagge could read a book in the amount of time it took Hylissang to use a W.
Well, that's because W on Rakan isn't good anymore.
It's very...
9.5 is getting buffed.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Apparently. This is what I've heard.
That's cool. But right now, we're still on 9.4.
That we are.
And that means that he's going to have to rely a lot more on his ultimate and his flash to guarantee that kind of lockdown onto Abbedagge. Meanwhile, the rest of Schalke actually making their way up towards the top side of the map. Very little vision on the side of Fnatic. Ooh, and Hylissang.
Yeah, he can't face check into that. Hylissang kick back. Upset jumps in. Good route from Rekkles to stop Abbedagge, but chains aren't going to connect either, which means Schalke will just have to take a single kill out of it.
That's an oopsie daisy. It's kind of classic Hylissang too. He should have respected who was where on the map, and if we could see no one from Schalke, he should have realized that he sees no one from Schalke, and you definitely don't W into the bush.
Exactly.
I guess he assumed that he'd still be safe because Rekkles was nearby, and obviously the E range is longer when you're with the Xayah, but still, ends up getting punished. Meanwhile, Bwipo still...
yeah, it's a pretty strong spot. Level advantage. Zhonya's first from Odoamne, meaning it's... Yeah, you've got a bit of extra tankiness, but Bwipo has so many extra stats over the Vladimir right now.
Zhonya's rush is like the worst feeling ever. It never feels good to buy it first. It's like great as like a 3rd or 4th item, but first, it doesn't give you enough AP to really trade very well. The 10% CDR doesn't feel that impactful. Really, really horrible item. So he's just building it for survivability. It definitely means that Bwipo shouldn't be able to solo kill him anymore. And Odoamne is going to have to wait a long time before his scaling really kicks in.
Fnatic sitting in a very good spot there. 5,000 gold ahead, 5 and 7 across the course of this split. Have been on the road back to playoffs, I think you can say. They started off incredibly slowly, kind of been sprinting towards that finish line, and a win against Schalke would be very impactful in their prospects.
Tie them up with Misfits, and it would make their game versus Misfits that all the more important. A lot of the results have actually benefited
Fnatic today.
A lot. But a win here, again, it was this was one of those games where it wasn't must win, in my opinion, but definitely beneficial, especially when you're kind of looking for playoff seed.
And the thing is, for Fnatic as well, it's the perfect time to play against Schalke, because Schalke on this downswing, Fnatic on an upswing as they get into the jungle here. But when you're playing against a team that have lost 3 of their last 4 games, they need to go in for fights like this. IgNar pops the ultimate. Bwipo's still there, the Cataclysm's already been used. The chase onto IgNar is quite big. Abbedagge jumping across the wall, but jumping back as well. And you can see Upset doesn't really have the damage yet.
So the great thing for Fnatic is that because of the amount of pressure that Bwipo was generating bot, he had a massive window where he could walk up and group with his team, and this allowed them to gain full vision control over the top side of the jungle, whereas Odoamne, he didn't want to TP in, he knew how weak he'd be, so this just forces Schalke to back away. While Fnatic don't convert it into anything, they get the flash out from IgNar, they get good vision control, and like this makes it harder for Schalke to actually approach the river and gain control around that Baron area.
So then what are Schalke's next steps? What are you looking for here? Are you still saying we need another item, we need another half an item here or there? Or can you start to make a few inroads, make a few plays?
Well, I think it's really difficult for them, given that they didn't get the LeBlanc ahead. I think she's in a fine spot right now, and the fact that the Sylas fell behind a little bit is beneficial for them. But I'm not afraid of this LeBlanc one-shotting anyone at this point in time. Perhaps if he's able to kill Broxah at the start of the fight, then they have a chance, but even then, I just kind of look at this comp from Schalke and I see the two massive scaling opportunities in the Vladimir and the Kai'Sa, and I think maybe that's how Schalke turn around. Maybe if they can just stall out to late game, LeBlanc can still be very relevant in the late game with the amount of burst that she has, chunking targets out before a fight even begins. But for now, if they try to force a fight, I think they're just going to lose. And I think it's a lot easier for Fnatic to just group and force, so Schalke just have to stall.
So Fnatic get priority on the next few neutral objectives. They're trying to use it to go for this bottom lane at towers. A Cloud Drake up in 7 seconds. Baron up as well. Odoamne trading onto Hylissang here, but not going to be able to do too much, as we said. That Zhonya's first, not giving him a huge amount of damage. Looks like Cloud Drake's going to be the objective for Fnatic. They continue to keep around this 5,000–6,000 gold lead or so. They're not extending it, but they don't really need to right now.
No, this is absolutely fine for Fnatic.
Yeah.
They're an okay spot. I wonder how much priority they'll put on the Baron. They do have a pretty fast Baron taking team, and they have a number of members that can tank it up as well. But they may just rely on the fact that Jarvan's so strong as side lane that he's eventually going to take that tower. And so they might just look to play this 1-4 strat where they keep mid and top pushing as much as possible, and then just allow Bwipo to do what he's done all game.
It does feel like there's a point where the Vladimir outscales the Jarvan, though. Like after you get 2, maybe 2.5 items.
Oh no, at this point he, because of how far behind he is and the fact that the, what's the word, Hex Drinker has been completed along with Merc Treads, you basically need a Void Staff. So you need Void Staff, you'll need the Proto Belt, and you'll need another item. So
maybe
probably a
Spirit Visage or Death.
Oh no, sorry, the Speedy Globe thing.
Oh, the Speedy Globe thing.
Yes, Spellbinder.
That's the one.
Once he's get those, then I would say he's in a better spot. But even then, like, look at how much damage Bwipo has.
So we're still waiting on 4 items or so on that Vladimir.
Yes.
A long way away.
But the Kai'Sa's really strong, though. That's one of the bright sides. Upset's farmed really, really well. Something that Amazing said at the beginning of the day was he feels Upset has kind of outshone Rekkles as, like, now the most consistent AD carry in the league, someone you could always rely on in late-game team fights. And he's had a really good laning phase, and I think that he can still be someone that you rely on as the game progresses.
It looks like Fnatic might be putting some eggs in the Baron basket because they're setting up this vision control around here, getting deep wards in, clearing out any wards they see from Schalke as well. So at least making Schalke step into blindness near the Nashor rather than just hard forcing that 1-4.
So what you'll see though is, note how Fnatic get vision, they then use it to push mid and top, and then they actually have Bwipo go back towards the bot lane, and Schalke spent all this time clearing out the vision, that Bwipo can then start setting up the siege again. And what this does is it creates these things called windows. And the thing about windows is they're windows of opportunity. And basically, because Odoamne will be forced to catch this wave, Fnatic can create a 5 versus 4, which means that they can either force the teleport out from Odoamne, or they can look for a pick, or they can rush the Baron. Basically, because they have more numbers, they're the ones dictating the setting of the battlefield.
Okay.
And so they'll be the ones in the advantage. Now, Hylissang did fail to clear out that ward, which kind of sucks for him.
I get it afterwards, it's fine.
There we are.
Got enough pink wards. He then moves his pink ward to where the blast cone is to make sure they couldn't get flanked by Odoamne if they go for the Baron.
But you'll notice, you talked about it earlier in the Misfits Vitality game, there are no outer towers down yet for Fnatic, which means that it's impossible for Schalke to push past the river, which means Baron control is pretty much impossible because they can never gain priority on mid. So Fnatic don't actually have to rush anything because they know that Bwipo just has so much pressure on a side lane, they're just waiting for Schalke to either mess up and position poorly or make a mistake that they can then quickly punish and then convert it into an objective, or again, they might just force the objective to force Schalke to come to them.
We know Schalke are a relatively good reactive team. They're very quick at reacting to what their enemies do. So Fnatic will be aware of that and probably will be a little bit cautious as to just like hard forcing a Baron or hard forcing a fight. They're playing around these windows that you talk about. And the game, it always settles into a kind of a little bit of a lull around this point of the game, right? Because Fnatic don't have to hard force anything. They don't have to be too aggressive with the way they make plays. They're happy just to wait things out. And
I think they could now, though. Yeah. Now is the point in time. Because just have a look at the items. GA now finished for the Jarvan. Lichbane is now done for Nemesis. Surprise, he's going more of the aggro build rather than defensive one. But you also have 3 items done on Rekkles. And you have the Morello completed on, well, it's more to do with the fact that level 13 on the Karthus. So now, let's force something, Fnatic. Let's see what you can do. because I think now is the prime time to actually create an opportunity for yourself.
All right, trying to force onto IgNar. Hylissang does have the quickness here, but just trying to get that Alistar low, and then we'll set up towards the top side. Get mid priority, push out the wave, and then clear out all this vision once again. We did see there Schalke 0 and 4 when they've been behind at the 15-minute mark. 0 and 3 in the second half of the split, yet to win a game this half. Abbedagge caught out, has to flash. Respect to Hylissang with that ultimate.
Didn't have his ultimate up, so he didn't have the second dash. Now Fnatic have full vision control. You can see that they're actually just sacrificing farm on the bot side as Bwipo gets engaged on.
Straight on towards Bwipo. Memento jumping away. IgNar low as well as pop the ultimate. He's quite tanky. Quickness comes out from Hylissang. Pull use from Odoamne. IgNar goes down. Fnatic now in a 5v4 situation. Abbedagge jumps in again, but still not really doing that much. Just chipping away Fnatic.
And we talked about it. This is the time when Fnatic want to try and force something. They find the first pick onto IgNar. He now doesn't have his ultimate available and will be dead for 20 seconds. And so Fnatic will now force the Baron. There is no vision in this area of the map. Schalke have to check blind, and they're checking into a level 15 Bwipo that's hungry for blood.
Nemesis chases onto Odoamne. That's the Requiem as well, used by the Karthus. That's one down. Broxah on a killing spree. Odo dies as well. Memento trying to get in, but he's gone. And Fnatic clean up house, take down the Nasher. And with it, they have a 10,000 gold lead.
Very clean League of Legends from the side of Fnatic. Everything was done to perfection. They leveraged their power spikes. They played around vision very well. But you have to give so much props to this man in the top lane, Bwipo. The fact that he built these early game leads, the fact that he was so strong on the job, and the amount of pressure that he generated in the side lane is so a big part of why Fnatic is even in this position in the first place.
Now just pushing down this mid inhib as well. They're going to break open the base of Schalke. Still 8 seconds left on Abbedagge, 10 on Odoamne. Schalke in all kinds of pain now as Fnatic just open up their base. Inhib down in the mid lane. They're going to reset. Easy enough for them to do. And 28 minutes on the clock. Fnatic seem to have this game on lock.
Yeah, they don't want to over-aggress. They don't want to commit too hard. And it's really difficult for Schalke to come back at this point in time. It's really easy for Fnatic to force these kind of team fights. And as we look at this Alienware replay, you will see that Bwipo, he doesn't care about getting engaged upon. Ooh, Broxah.
Upset used the ultimate, it looks like. Must have hit a long-range Void Seeker, then jumped in.
Okay, well, Broxah loses his flash. Perhaps he overstayed there. Bit of a blunder. But yeah, Bwipo, he doesn't mind getting engaged upon. He was able to turn that around pretty cleanly. He's a very tanky man, especially now level 16. Yeah, and the thing is, while Schalke do have that like scaling option of like the Vladimir and the Kai'Sa, they're just too far behind now. Yep. Upset Abbedagge rather, he's in some danger. Bwipo has found him, and he is just forcing him back.
That's the thing with the LeBlanc. You can escape relatively easily with the distortion, assuming you have it up. We do see 3 items on Upset, as you say. There's a glimmer of hope, maybe, but it's probably the faintest glimmer I have seen today. Rekkles going to take down this tower. Mid lane supers are on their way, about halfway through that lane at the moment, and soon they will be pushing onto the Nexus towers of Schalke. Schalke now split. It's the 1-4 from Fnatic. Bwipo by himself. The rest of Fnatic down towards this bottom side.
Super minions also helping in the mid lane. Bwipo will secure a tower. Odoamne unfortunately cannot handle him as he continues to push.
A long way away from 4 items on that Vladimir.
Yep, a long way away indeed. And Nemesis will once again steal away IgNar's ultimate. And here we are. They're breaking into the base. Another fight happens in top lane.
Yeah, Odoamne just getting chunked out by Bwipo. We'll be able to survive. The Hemoplague heals him up as well, but already the inhibitor down in this bottom side. Fnatic knocking on the door. Looking for that 6th win of the split. Upset engaged on the Requiem comes out as well. Upset trying to survive. Will get chased back to his fountain, but all of the inhibitors are down, and Fnatic don't really care about the kills. All they see is the Nexus, a triple charm into knockup. They're going to clean this one up. The Nexus goes down, and Fnatic get their 6th win of the season.
One step closer to playoffs for Fnatic, and this was a very clean game. Arguably not a must-win one, but definitely a valuable one. This will tie them up with the likes of Misfits. It'll get them that one step closer to even Schalke in the standings, who's now sitting at 7 and 6. And while at the beginning of the day we said both Splyce and Schalke statistically looked like they were kind of shoo-ins for playoffs, these standings have now shaken up pretty significantly. The middle of the pack is very close, and it is nothing but a toss-up as to who will be able to make that way into the top 6 and secure a spot in playoffs.
We have so many teams sitting at 7 and 6 now, a couple at 6 and 7 as well. It's a very, very close middle of the table. And as much as we can run scenarios and we can give teams 50-50 odds, it's never like that. You have teams on a rise, you have teams on a fall, and at the moment, it looks like Schalke just haven't quite got their game together.
Nope. I personally wasn't a massive fan of the LeBlanc pick. I feel like they didn't play around it very effectively. You put a lot of pressure on a player who, in my opinion, has been underperforming over the last 2 weeks, and while it's all well and good to have confidence in your players, ultimately I think you should have tried to play around your strengths. Odoamne were very solid in the side lane, even though today he ultimately got outplayed by Bwipo. You still also have a very strong 2 versus 2 down towards the bot side of the map, who were also just hard winning lane.
It's true.
And we just didn't see any kind of early game impact from Memento. So I feel like overall, we didn't see much from Schalke this game. And it was pretty much the Bwipo show. He got his lead. He then brought his lead to the bot lane, and he helped them secure that tower. And the moment that tower went and the map opened up, it pretty much became a slow, crushing defeat in favor of Fnatic.
But that's exactly what you want if you're a Fnatic fan, right? You just want to see them close out games, clean, methodical playstyle from them. It's working out really well for them at the moment, and I think they've, especially this game, they found a playstyle that just seems to really work for them. Right? Get Bwipo a bit of an early lead in terms of the flash.
They didn't get him. He got himself an early lead.
They burned the flash on Odo, which is why Bwipo could get those early kills, right?
Sure.
So put a tiny bit of time into him.
Give him 1% jungle proximity, and then he'll turn it into a win.
Hey, if your top laner can do that, why not give him the 1%? Right?
Yeah, very impressed from Bwipo, but it's one of those situations where I think he demonstrated that even if he doesn't get resources, he can still have an impact. Yeah. And it just makes you wonder what happens if you then give this man resources, right? What can this team do? So I still think there's room for what Fnatic can show us throughout the rest of the split. Definitely a strong contender coming into playoffs, but they still have to lock in that spot. And with only 5 games left to go, everything's up for grabs. And what is the hashtag, Menik?
Flounder?
Every game
Flounder Princess.
counts. Gonna be an exciting one. Now tell us, who are our player of the game?
Well, after all the action, you guys can vote for your player of the game at LOL Esports on Twitter. We've narrowed it down to Bwipo, Broxah, and Rekkles. And it's definitely one of the Bs, and definitely the BW.
I mean, ultimately, I think that Bwipo had the ultimate, had the biggest impact in this game.
Ultimately, he had the ultimate game.
Ultimately, he had the ultimate game. Yes, I was very impressed with his Jarvan, and I think he was a large part as to why they won.
I think he was the majority of why they won. In all honesty, they didn't have to put too much pressure into him. He got them ahead. But for more on Fnatic's win, we're going to talk to Laure and Rekkles.
Thank you, Medik, and thank you, Rekkles, for joining me. You took down Origin, you took down Vitality, and this week you take down Schalke and Ulfir. Do you feel like these teams are underperforming right now, or is it you catching up?
I think it's mostly us catching up. I feel like in the beginning of the split we were really bad, so now that we've kind of found our groove again, we managed to play just fine against these teams. And honestly, the games were kind of close last week, so even though we won all of them, I feel like it wasn't like a clear showing of us dominating our opponents. It was much more just about us kind of figuring out again what we can do to win games.
I was talking about this to Young Buck a few weeks back about the fact that Riot bring up a new patch, and maybe this new patch could help you, especially in the bot lane and the AD carries. Do you feel like this has some kind of impact, or is it something else in the team that makes you shine right now?
I think the patch for sure helped me because it allowed me to not run into Lucian every game or have to play Astral every game. So it obviously helped me because I now have the opportunity to play more crit ADCs. But at the same time, I think our success doesn't necessarily come from me specifically. I think it comes from us just playing together. Honestly, I feel like in the beginning we were kind of 1 by 1 rather than 5 together. And in these last 3 games, we have been doing stuff together, even though some of them were questionable. It was still always together, and I think that's the change that made the biggest difference, and that's the thing that we're going to keep on working on as well for the future, because we know that if we just keep doing stuff together, then the wins are going to come.
It's weird for me to analyze your playstyle because in the last weeks, you abandoned Bwipo, let him on his island to focus more on you, and then today he shines so much. So what is Fnatic's playstyle right now?
I think our playstyle is just like I said, we try to do everything together. So in this case, Bwipo got a solo kill, I think at level 3, maybe level 4, I'm not sure, but somewhere in the early parts he got a solo kill, and then we kind of all just made sure that he had a good time in the top lane so that he had the opportunity to carry in the end. Because if then instead we try to throw everything on bot lane, we kind of give them the opportunity to win the game. Meanwhile, if we instead just let Bwipo do his thing, then he will carry it out. So it was a little bit of a silent game from the rest of us, but I think that shows strength and that shows trust from us towards him, which is something you wouldn't see during the first week. So it's once again just us wanting to play together and figuring out how we can be Fnatic 2019, basically.
No key player per se, just the team in Fnatic 2019, as you said. How do you feel about the rest of the season, reaching playoffs? You guys are on 3-win streak right now. Can you make it further?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Can you make it further, like advance to playoff, with you picking up 3 wins right now?
I mean, I would consider us like a really good team, even though going into this week we're 8th place. We're still, in my eyes at least, like easily able to contest with most of these teams. So it was, at least to me, just a matter of time before we would translate it onto stage and be more of a team. And last week was really important, I think, because it made us believe once again in this project that we got going. So I think pretty much any team that's not G2 is fine for us. And then even G2 isn't looking like super duper insane or anything. I think they're getting most of their wins from their individual strengths. So if we can somehow, some way manage to allow ourselves to play the game out rather than losing it in our laning phase, then I think even against G2 we could manage to get a win. So in my eyes at least, it's all up for grabs. We might as well be the winners at the end of this thing. So it's just about keep going, like keep grinding, and then in a month's time when Rotterdam comes around, maybe we'll be there and maybe we'll lift the trophy once again.
It's nice to hear that everything's possible for you guys. Is there some words you'd like to say to the fans watching you, because they've been supporting you so far?
Well, I'm always grateful that people stick around when we have tough times. It's not my first rodeo, so I've been here before. I've seen, you know, how many people leave us when things aren't going well. But I've also seen how many people stick around when things are not going well. So I'm always grateful to those, especially because I feel like Fnatic has always been the most popular team with the most fans, and that kind of made it more exciting to play. And it's just honestly a great experience, and I'm happy to, you know, be able to share that with all the fans and my teammates.
Well, thank you for your thoughts, and congrats on the victory today.
Thank you.
And to wrap up the day, we're gonna send it over to Trevor and the post-game lobby. Take it away, guys.